Shannon. So welcome to the December SPAN quarterly meeting. Again, my name is Angie McDonald. Karen Shannon could not be with us today, but she will be back for the spring meeting, and she misses us all today. So today's meeting is going to be a brainstorming. Oh, 1 second. Today's meeting is going to be a brainstorming session. So we're going to break out into breakout rooms for about 20 minutes today. Before we get started, though, I just want to take a second and introduce our prevention team. So I want to take a minute and just introduce Karen Mullen, Monica DeWinter, who is helping us with the technology, and then a couple of our leaders who are going to help with the breakout rooms today. Alyssa Kentz, who is the Parent Action Team Coordinator and a member of our steering committee, and Chris Baker, who's the Deputy Police Chief, leader of our Community Action Team and a member of our steering committee, and he is going to lead the Community Action Team breakout today. So let me just pull up our slideshow. So again, it's this December quarterly meeting. So I'm gonna invite you to at this time to just take a minute and choose the breakout room that you would like to go into. And the way you can do that is by clicking the 3 blue dots, and you're gonna rename yourself where your name is with either a P or a C. So you can go into the Parent Action Team or the Community Action Team room. If you can't do that, if that's a little too complicated, you can just throw a P or a C in the chat. And Monica's gonna, while we go through a little bit of the prep, Monica's going to add everybody to a breakout. Does anybody have any questions about that? So there's 3 blue dots up by your name, and you're just gonna choose either the Parent Action Team or the Community Action Team breakout room. And Monica will place everybody in a room, and we'll go there in a few minutes. Just a reminder, the meeting is being recorded, and if you have any questions, please share them in the chat. So what we're gonna do today is basically, I'm gonna give you a little background, just some data points that you can use when you're in the breakout rooms when we're brainstorming. We're gonna break out into the action teams. We'll be there for about 20 minutes. Your leaders will guide the conversation, and then we'll come back and we'll meet together and we'll report back to the group and kind of come up with some ideas. So the ideas are gonna be how the Community Action Team and the Parent Action Team can set priorities for the year. And I'll get into that a little bit more. But before we do that, we want to take a couple of minutes and hear from one of our salsa students from Needham High School. So Bo Young is going to share with us a little bit about what salsa is doing, just kind of set the stage before we go into the breakouts and talk about prevention strategies for Needham youth. Let's hear from Bo Young. And if you want to unmute yourself and share.
Hi, my name is Bo Young. I'm a sophomore at the high school, and I'm part of SALSA as well as the statewide leadership team for the 84 movement. Let me just put these notes that I had. All right, so some recent accomplishments from SALSA are that members have already volunteered nearly 400 hours with SPAN and SALSA this school year. I helped to plan and participate in the 84 Movement's Youth Power Summit, which several SALSA members also attended, and the event was focused on racial justice this year. In November, 16 SALSA members attended the Peer Leadership Conference at Gillette Stadium and accepted $1,500 for winning the Team Rival Challenge, beating Wellesley and many other Norfolk County high schools in 4 challenge events in the past year. And then we have how students can get involved in our work. So we have monthly general meetings, which is on the first Friday of every month. And we have 5 different action teams, and the meetings are bi-weekly or weekly, both before or after school. We have the middle school wellness team, the mental health action team, the social media action team, the vaping awareness action team, and the distracted driving action team. So those all meet like throughout the week, and students can choose to participate as much or as little as they want, which I think is great. And some other volunteer opportunities coming up are that we have field trips to Pollard to 8th grade wellness classes, which begin next month. The middle school wellness action team has been updating their presentation to be ready for these events, and students can't wait to get back in the classroom with the Pollard 8th graders after not being able to do so due to COVID. And also later this week, I believe on Thursday, 20 salsa and non-salsa students will participate in the focus group that Beth Israel is holding. So I think that's also great, so they can get like youth input. Another one is that salsa is sending 2 leaders to NHS SAFE meetings beginning today, actually. So that'll be Leanna Carroll as well as me. And SAFE is basically this organization at Needham High, which is like a collective group of student leaders from like different clubs. They include like Own Your Peace, Salsa, CCOR, and other clubs that focus on advocacy. And that's when we gather with administration to speak about changes we want to see, especially in the curriculums in English and history, which I think is really great because then they get to see like the youth perspective and like how we want to see change within our school. And yeah, and then we also have the SPAN Youth Action Team, which will be led by Leanna Carroll, which is a group of 4 to 6 salsa members, and their kickoff meeting is happening later today. Another one, members will participate in the 84 Movements Tobacco 101 workshop, which will be held virtually next Tuesday. And lastly, the 2021 to 2022 Norfolk County Team Rival Challenge events are beginning, and there are 4 new challenge events for NHS students this year, and all events are virtual, and the goal is to get as many Needham High students to participate so that Needham can again beat Wellesley and other Norfolk County high schools. Those are all of my updates, and next steps, please be sure to follow us on social media. Our Instagram is Needham_salsa. We hope to partner with other SPAN action teams throughout the year, depending on the projects. And please let us know if you need any youth input on your projects or initiatives, because we are very happy to help. And that will be all from me. Do any of you have any questions about any of the topics I discussed today? Thank you so much.
I just want to say thank you, Bo Young, and I can't overstate how amazing all of the salsa students are, and the group as a whole is just so impressive. I was fortunate enough to travel with the students and Karen Mullen to Foxborough to the team rival competition with that the Norfolk County District Attorney put on, and I was so impressed. I mean, if that was a presentation put on for adults, it would have been impressive, but the fact that it was for high school students was really impressive, and the students just really like set the bar so high with the work that they do in prevention that we as adults really need to meet them where they're at. So we have quite a few students here today who are going to be in the breakout rooms with you. And I would really challenge you to let them like set the bar high and, you know, reach them where they're at, because they're doing some amazing things. And they have some great ideas that we can just, you know, tap into. So thank you so much for taking your time to be here today. We really appreciate it. We need your voices.
Of course, thank you so much.
Okay, so just a little background before we go into the brainstorming session. So today's goals for the meeting are to brainstorm some ideas, set some priorities for the coming year. So we do this from a prevention approach. So some of you may have a strong prevention background, some of you have no prevention background, and that's perfectly okay. What that means is that we want to just keep our mission in mind as we plan strategies and activities for the coming year. The SPAN Coalition is collaborative, community-based, and it's data-driven. So our goal is to reduce alcohol, marijuana, or other drug use among Needham youth. And we're going to use data to inform our brainstorming. And I'm going to give you some of our key data points right now so that you can take that into the brainstorming with you. So we're going to identify the problems by looking at the data. After we look at the data, we're going to ask you to go into the breakout room and identify which problems you specifically want to focus on in your action team. There might be more problems than one action team can focus on in a year. So you're going to pick which problems. For example, you might not be able to look at underage drinking, marijuana, and vaping all in one year. You may have to focus on one or two things and maybe one piece of that. So then you're going to identify the outcomes that you'd like to achieve and some strategies to achieve those outcomes. Again, this is brainstorming, so there's no right or wrong answers today. We're not trying to get concrete results today. We just want to talk out some ideas and start the conversation flowing. So some prevention terms that we want to focus on. We always want to reduce risk factors. So the risk factors are the conditions in the community, family, peer group, and school that make it more likely that a person will use substances. Risk factors answer the question, why are people using? And we've listed a few here, but they can be as simple as a family history, trauma, things like that. So we always want to be thinking about how are we reducing risk factors. Alternatively, we want to increase protective factors. So the protective factors are the conditions that make it less likely that a person will use substances. So they answer the question, why aren't people using? Students participating in salsa make a commitment not to use. That's a protective factor in the community. We want to support the salsa students. We've listed a few of those here. So we want to increase protective factors. And now we're going to look at some of the data that we use to inform our work. So this data is from the Metro West Adolescent Health Survey. You've probably seen this before if you've been on any of our SPAN calls before or on one of our Zooms. This represents Needham High School students' self-reported current use rates, which is defined as using during the past 30 days. So in this case, we've seen vaping use and marijuana use increase over a 2-year period between 2016 and 2018. And underage alcohol use and prescription drug use decreased somewhat. Now, this is from 2018. It's a bit dated. They did do, finally were able to do a new survey this fall. Those numbers won't be out until 2022. So we are still using this. This is the most current larger study that we have to operate from. But what we have is some supporting studies that lend to kind of support what we're seeing here. So last spring, in the middle of the pandemic, we conducted a focus group, and the focus group kind of supported what we were seeing from the Metro West Adolescent Survey. The students and the parents both said that alcohol and marijuana still seem to be the primary substances used by students. There was some mention that vaping might be waning in popularity. We're not going to jump on that yet because this study was a smaller group of people. And it was in the height sort of the pandemic. If you look at March and April, it was when vaccines were just becoming available. So we are gonna like pause before we jump on that data point. But in general, it kind of supports what we were seeing from 2018, that the primary substances are alcohol and marijuana. And that's what is being seen in Needham. So those, you know, you want to take that into your brainstorming sessions and consider those probably as the top substances that students are using. And then the most recent data point that we have was in earlier this month, December 1st, the town did alcohol compliance checks for establishments with licenses. So they sent 2 operatives ages 19 and 20 into 25 of the 31 licensed establishments. There were 11 violations. So that means they sold alcohol to a person under 21. Of those violations, 6 didn't check IDs, 5 did check IDs and still served the person alcohol. So these were restaurants and carryout. So this would kind of speak to access, which would, you know, if you want to put it under a risk factor or protective factors, you could probably put it under both, you know, access to alcohol for underage people. We wouldn't want them to be able to go into liquor stores and purchase. So this is the most recent data point that we have. And does anybody have any questions about that so far? Okay, so that's kind of the data that we're going to send you off into the breakout rooms with. The last thing I want to say is just to always consider that the inverse of the use data. So if you just look at like vaping, electronic vapor products, for example. So while 23% of Needham youth reported vaping in the last 30 days when the Metro West Adolescent Health Survey was delivered in 2018, 23% were using in that 30 days or had used. 77% reported not using. So we want to consider 2 things. One, we don't want to forget that huge majority of students who's not currently using substances. 2, we want to make sure that our messaging does not imply that the majority of students are using our vaping. So for example, when we're promoting a cessation program, we don't want to accidentally or inadvertently promote a program with making it seem that the whole high school is vaping, because they're not. In fact, the majority of the high school is not vaping. So we want to always consider that in our messaging, that not everybody is doing this. In fact, the majority really isn't if you look at the numbers. All right, so that's the data. And now we're going to go off into the breakout rooms. We're going to spend about 20 minutes in there. I just want to once again say, if you have not put chosen a group, parent or community, you have a moment now to put it in the chat, or we'll pick one for you and we'll send you into a breakout room. You're going to have about 20 minutes in those rooms. And then once again, you know, we have people from all different backgrounds, people with all different experience levels. So we just want to invite you to kind of in the breakouts. Remember, this is a brainstorming session. There's no right or wrong answers. We want everybody to share equally. We want everybody to feel comfortable sharing. We want all ideas to feel welcome. So really just kind of come into this. Please don't, you know, correct each other. Please just let people share their ideas and thoughts, and let this be a working group where everybody's okay to share their thoughts. Monica, are you ready to send everybody? Does anybody have any questions before we go into the breakouts? Okay, then I guess we'll send you into the breakouts. We'll see you back here in 20 minutes.
I was put in the parent room, but I was,
Do you want to switch?
yeah.
Okay, let me see. Sorry about that.
No problem.
Okay, thank you. Let's see. Okay, good. So this part's not recorded, right?
No.
Yeah.
No, it's paused, I think.
Good job, Angela, you're doing so great. You are.
I feel like, I don't know, I feel like I launched into it and then it's like,
Well, that's what data does to you, right? You just start. Oh, there's a new chat. I was in that.
oh,
Do you see, what does it say?
I only see a message from Sandra Rizcala saying she has to leave at 9.
Oh, okay, yeah, I see that, okay.
Okay, so then.
Okay.
They're gonna come back in 15 minutes, quick.
Carol arrived, which is great, but she arrived late and I pre-assigned her. And then when you had said it a second time, she switched, she's told me which group and it was the other one, but I think she got into the right one after all, because there's a little button that says exchange and it worked. I set the timer for 18 minutes. They'll get a 2-minute warning, I hope. And because I put in 120 seconds for warning and hopefully there was no save button for that. It just took it. So I hope that if not, we can keep an eye on the time because let's say they went in 2 minutes ago. I would take them out in 20 minutes. So that would be 52, 9:12.
Our time is fine. We're actually like a few minutes ahead.
That's great.
I knew I wouldn't be like talking.
Be good because hopefully there'll be plenty of discussion.
Yeah, so we can do see how long the discussion takes when we come back. I hope there's a lot of talking in the breakout rooms.
I do too.
Oh, I think it is recording this.
Okay.
I can try to fix it after.
Maureen Callahan is coming. Good morning, Maureen.
Morning, Monica.
Would you like to be assigned to a breakout room? They're about halfway through.
I'm late. I thought it was at 9. I'm completely
Oh yeah, it started at 8:30.
late. Okay.
Totally.
Yes. So I'm so sorry about that.
No,
I'm completely in my head was 9 o'clock. So
No worries. You're going to be in company. There's someone else who just joined as well. So I can just
makes me feel better.
yep, I hope it does. Sharita, good morning. If you'd like to join, there's a parent breakout and there's a community action team breakout. Would you like to go into
Community
a breakout
action
room,
team.
Maureen? Okay,
Yeah,
I'll
that'd be
sign you
great.
now.
Thank you.
Okay. Good morning, Sharita. If you'd like to join an action team, the groups have started. There's a parent and there's a community action team breakout room for another 8 minutes. Would you like to join one?
Awesome. I'll join the parent.
Parent? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. That makes 19 in the community action teams and 1,
Wow.
8 in the parent.
Those are really good numbers.
Yeah. And then plus the 2 of us, so that makes a total of 30 people are on the call. Actually 29 total. It says breakout room 6 more minutes, but when I did my timer on my phone, it's 9. So I don't know. I hope the breakout rooms just say that because there's a 2-minute warning. So we'll add on 2 more minutes. We'll see.
It's funny, there's so many in the community.
Should we put the hospital flyer in the chat, or should I put it up on the actual screen?
I think you can put it in the chat too.
I think I'd rather do that.
Yeah. So if they come back, it's 9:06.
My time, there's a countdown, a breakout countdown. It says 3 minutes,
Okay, so
but that's ahead. I put on my phone countdown. It says 6 minutes. So anyway,
so we can end the conversation at 9:30 if it goes that long,
okay.
and then do the resource slides, and then we'll end a little before 9:45, which I think is kind of probably nice.
It's just like 5 minutes early. Okay.
Yeah. I think, I mean, people carve out till 9:45, but we'll see how the conversation goes.
Yeah. Yep.
I mean, if the conversation goes, we have till 9:45, I'll let it keep going. Till 9:45,
Yeah.
but I just want to make sure I don't do it late.
It says 2 minutes now. But I hope that means it's going to give a 2-minute warning for, like, they do a countdown. We'll see. 'Cause there's a button I press here. It says close all rooms. So I won't do that until I'm going to give it 2 minutes after this one. So I'll do it in like I'll close the rooms in three minutes.
Then I'll spend the rest of the day trying to figure out how to get this part out of the recording.
You will. You're good like that. You're techie.
When we could have just hit pause.
Right. Next time.
It's irrelevant now. Once a little bit's in there, who cares? Oh, well, we learned.
All right, there's a 3, 2, 1 countdown. If it closes up. Okay, good. It says all breakout rooms will close in 116 seconds.
So it happened exactly the way you thought it would.
Okay, wonderful. So we'll expect Chris and Alyssa to lead and just see how it flows. And I can't imagine there not being discussion. This is a large group. So
Yeah, I have 3 questions.
what's your first question if you need
And my
it?
one was, what surprised you most in the brainstorming? My other one is, what are you most interested in learning more about from your brainstorming session? And then my last one was, if money and volunteers were not a factor, which idea would you run with from your brainstorming?
I like that. Those are all good. Very
I
good.
figured those would get people talking. And
Yeah,
if
they're
that
all
doesn't get
open-ended.
people talking, then I don't know what to say. But I'll start with just, does somebody from each room want to share what was, tell the other group that wasn't in that room what happened, what you guys talked about.
Great. I'll turn off my phone timer so it doesn't make a sound. 15 seconds.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back. I think everybody's back to our main room now. Hopefully you had some great conversations in the breakouts. I just want to invite somebody from, maybe one person from the community action team to share what happened in that room. We have a few minutes now to just kind of have somebody from community action share what you all talked about, and then somebody from the parent action team share what you all talked about. And then if we want to just, talk a little bit. Somebody from community action team want to share?
I can talk about it.
Sarah?
So Chris kind of recapped what we've been working on. The biggest initiatives that we've had over the past couple of years, I guess. Social host campaign, which kind of died a little bit because of the pandemic, but we're starting to focus on that again. The impaired driving video featuring Officer Rocket, and we have talked about potentially doing more things along those lines. The Be a Good Neighbor campaign, which we actually talked a lot about last meeting because of all the alcohol compliance check that people failed, and maybe having some sort of award given out to the businesses who actually passed the compliance check. So trying to focus on the positives there. And then we've also started a parent Al-Anon meeting. A lot of the group, we really focused on trying to get to the root of the substance misuse. So really focusing on mental health and how a lot of people are using to self-medicate for depression, suicidal ideation, hopelessness, not being able to meet other expectations, and maybe finding a way to focus on this as opposed to just the substance. We talked about some data around these points and how a lot of people that are misusing substances do have some of these mental health challenges. Talked a little bit how people don't want to take prescribed medications because they think that the substances are doing a good job of controlling the anxiety, and how can we educate people around that. So we focused a lot on education, and also talked a lot about what can happen in the high school and what isn't happening in the high school, and that seems like some students are afraid to access some things that are already in place in the high school, like the vaping cessation program, and just being afraid to access those because it's school run. And also students, there are a lot of clubs at the school that focus around awareness, but not really any kind of intervention that might help. So we talked a little bit about ways we could potentially do this. And then we also talked about some cards that might include some resources on them, or self-help strategies that maybe we could give out to the population and just raise awareness about areas that could help. And then also some maybe signs and symptoms. We didn't really get a chance to solidify exactly what we're looking at. And then talked about other ways in the high school. Do we have a place that students could drop in and ask for help and things like that? And then we got cut off. Thank you very much. I'm just kidding.
Wow. It sounds like you all talked about a lot. You got a lot done. I did want to read a comment from the chat that says from Bo Young. I didn't get a chance to say this, but I think the guidance office counselors are a better resource than the nurse's office when it comes to providing mental health substance use. Thanks for sharing that. Does anybody want to chime in about anything Sarah shared about?
Or let me know too, community action team, if I missed anything.
Okay, does somebody from the parent action team want to give us a little update about what happened in the parent action?
I don't see any volunteers, so I'll go ahead and
Thank you,
talk.
Alyssa.
So we talked actually a lot about athletics at the high school, and how maybe the protective factors are not there for athletics the way they could be. Something that was brought up was drinking at football games, drinking on the hill at football games. and that it's been reported back to parents that it's happening quite a bit. So we talked about some protective factors, maybe having more police there or more adults there, maybe having some of the athletes really, be outspoken about not using or that kind of thing where they could set an example. We also talked about just kind of the culture around athletics and how it might shift the power to some of the athletes and put them in a place where they feel like they can either bully or do other things that might make people feel uncomfortable. So there was some concern around that, that there's some cyberbullying that happens among some of the athletes to non-athlete students. Also talked about something called Candy Girls, where the cheerleaders have to give candy to the football players and just how that kind of creates a backwards culture. So, those are some things that came up. We really got on the athletics topic, but I think it was something trying to think about what the risk factors are and what some of the reasons are that kids are using. But feel free, anyone else who was in the meeting, to chime in if there's anything else I missed. I feel like we could have used more time. The discussion was still going strong.
Definitely. We didn't have any students in our group, so I'd be curious if any of the points that Alyssa just mentioned ring true in the student world. Are those things that the students have heard of? Lots of drinking on the hill, this whole candy girl concept, the idea of, the athletes not being held accountable for their actions. Anybody, any of the students want to chime in on that?
I can, if you can hear me. Okay.
Go ahead,
Great.
Ben.
Okay. So I do cross country, and I mean, I'm not sure about other sports, but there is, I think, at the beginning of the season, we were all given like a piece of paper that basically said if you participate in any drinking or hazing or anything similar to that, you will be kicked off the team and there will be serious consequences. And I think that really, it seemed pretty serious, and I don't think, at least no one I know did it, or there was kind of just a culture of like, we don't really do that. I don't know about other sports.
I'm curious, based on what Ben said and knowing a little bit about what other coaches have done, to kind of make a statement like that at the beginning of the year sounds like it can have a really significant positive impact. I'm also curious if anyone has had experience with coaches playing a role of following up on any of that stuff, like checking in with their athletes during the season or midstream to see if that decree is being followed or if it's challenging, or I don't know. I'm curious if, and more specifically, like once your coach kind of said that at the beginning, was there any kind of follow up afterwards, or was it just kind of left?
I don't recall there being any follow-up. I think part of that is because there wasn't really an issue with it. I do remember on Halloween, he did make a statement, sort of like, we recognize that this time of the year is generally when the most cases of students drinking, etc. happen. So kind of like, don't do that. And I also recall that like their team captains I think kind of promoted that, like, don't, not in a, didn't, you know, say it, but they were always kind of good role models for that.
So I just want to chime in here. So for those who don't know me, I'm Ricky. I'm the assistant AD at the high school. And so, you know, as far as coaches kind of reaching out to students and following up about the rules in place, I know it varies by each team. And obviously there are kind of hot spots when kids are more likely to partake in alcohol abuse. And so we as a department try and, you know, we got out in front of it a little bit by making sure that coaches are addressing that, especially during, you know, the seasons where kids are, you know, if they do get caught, they're subject to a 25% suspension for the season. And so, you know, we know it's still happening. It's, you know, it's still happening, you know, privately, and kids are, you know, doing it without getting caught. But we've done our best to try and like get the information out to say like, here's, you know, we really need to stay on top of it. And I know some coaches are better than others. And I think we also have to be better about like getting, you know, staying on top of coaches about these things throughout the season and in the off season, which is a whole other issue where kids are definitely, you know, we see it at football games. We're not blind to it. It is very hard to kind of single out kids for potentially doing it without actually seeing them physically do it. And I know the police kind of feel the same way. So it is a challenge, like to go about, like, you know, we don't want to like bust kids for being, I don't know, like get kids in trouble, but it's more like we need to figure out a way to like make it more important to, or just make it more like, you know, we shouldn't be doing these things at school sponsored events or games or in general. And I think that's a challenge that we're trying to figure out how to best approach.
Well, I think we're all here with you. In agreement. Anybody else want to chime in on that? I mean, that's the meeting today, basically.
I would just say that in terms of like, I would imagine it must be really hard to catch kids in the act, and that kids are, you know, will figure out a way to kind of get what they want and do what they want. I've also been struck and aware that a lot of really smart kids will post on their Instagram pages pictures or videos of them drinking, or at least in a party scene. And I don't know. Is that a form of getting caught? Or could that be a form of getting caught? Or how do people, coaches or authorities, kind of parents and or others deal with that? That seems to be a common thing.
So that, as far as, you know, that's a tough one too, because a lot of times, you know, so we have like an athletic department Instagram, but we don't follow students. And so I think where that comes into being a little bit more of a challenge is that, you know, sometimes parents can see it and they don't necessarily bring it forward to us for fear of maybe like retribution or something kind of negative happening to them or their kid or whatever. Yeah. And so like that's a challenge that, you know, we've had to deal with it this year, and it's certainly like not easy. I you know, if it's such a, you know, if that's happening, like I would suggest that parents bring that forward and say like, this, you know, this is happening, and this is, you know, if you have the proof, if you have like the video evidence and everything like that, then we can, you know, we can make a difference. We can try and like come up with a solution to like, whether that's suspending a student or, you know, different things. But that the challenge of that is like getting people to come forward with that information.
So we have about like 5 more minutes in this conversation before we wrap up. I wanted to pose kind of one more question to the group for everybody who is in the brainstorming sessions before we wrap up. Based on the brainstorming that you did and your smaller group and some of the conversation we just had now, if money and volunteers and all of that were off the table and you could have whatever you needed, if somebody were going to give you unlimited volunteers and an unlimited budget, which ideas or which strategies, what thing would you run with? What idea would you love to take a run at, and see what you could do with and give it a shot, even if you didn't know if there was a guaranteed outcome, but you're this is what I'd like to try in the spring. Here's my big idea. Does anybody have some idea they might have heard of or they've been thinking about that they would love to try taking, your dream with all the roadblocks removed?
I would love to see more training and coaches for coaches. I think there needs to be coaching for coaches along all of these lines, and consistency from the cross-country team to the football team. It should not matter what the team is. And I think the coaches need to really be on a level playing field, if I will, to have all the same rules across the board. Not, I don't know what the 25% is, sorry, Ricky, about if a student is caught doing something illegal, that means that they can still finish the season. That's surprising to me. It seems like it should be a zero tolerance, that you caught doing something, you're off completely. And I think that would impact the kids much more if they knew that, again, for, all sports. So, I would love to see more training on the coach level.
Thanks, sorry. Anybody else have a big idea that they'd like to implement? Go ahead, Deb.
I build on Sari's. I think as part of that, I think there should also be expectations of a code of conduct, because the athletes in the schools are often, or certainly the football players are often looked up to and have power in the school, as do the cheerleaders. And if there were a general code of conduct, I think that would be good, because if they mistreat other kids, then the other kids may be more likely to use, there's cyberbullying. In my daughter's experience in particular, there was cyberbullying, and the kids did not get properly dealt with for what they did to my daughter. And it was part of what led to her drinking and using drugs. Sorry.
Thank you, Deb. Anybody else? Something totally different or on the same idea? Any of the students?
I have something to say about the more tight regulation within sports and drug abuse. I feel just suspending students from those sports isn't the best solution to that. I feel there also has to be some sort of education and prevention methods taken. Say if a student gets caught and then they're just suspended from their sport, I feel that doesn't do anything for them.
Thanks, Bo. Yeah. Anybody else? Any other thoughts? All right, well, if nobody else has anything else, then I appreciate everybody sharing and giving their all to the brainstorming sessions. Again, Karen Shannon's really sorry she couldn't be here for this meeting, but we appreciate you all coming and sharing. And the action teams, the community, the parent, and the youth action teams meet monthly to continue these conversations and to implement some of these ideas and strategies. And you are all always welcome to join those groups. We'll send out a follow-up email with the dates and times of those meetings, and you're always invited to join them. I'm just going to share a couple of quick resources as we wrap up and say thank you. These are just some general local resources. If anybody is ever looking for resources, our SPAN webpage is just loaded with them, from, you know, content that you can go to actual, you know, phone numbers you can pick up the phone and call and talk to a human being. We have lots of resources, and Karen and I have lots of contacts. So if you need any help, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. And Needham Youth and Family Services, Sarah Shine is always a great contact, as well as Needham High School Guidance. We put their number on here too. And these are some of the examples of some of the other resources you can find on our webpage, spanneedham.org. If you're looking for conversation starters, also you can follow us on social media. And there's our website. And we want to thank you all for a great 2021. Monica has put a survey in the chat. If you could just take a minute to fill out the survey, we would really appreciate that. And while you're doing that, I'm going to invite Alyssa Kentz to just share a moment. She wanted to tell us a little bit about some listening sessions that Beth Israel Deaconess is going to be hosting that some of you might be interested in.
Thank you. So I work at Beth Israel Deaconess Hospital in community benefits and community relations, and we are in the midst of our triennial community health needs assessment, where we go out into the community and try to identify unmet health needs in the community. So we've done surveys, focus groups, and interviews, and our next step is to bring, sorry, I'm right by the train, to bring the community together for listening sessions, where we invite residents to provide feedback on whether the data we've collected is accurate, and then to prioritize those unmet health needs. So, you know, does mental health rise to the top? Is housing an issue? So we are hosting those sessions on February 2nd and February 8th, which seems like a long way off. But if you're interested in attending, we would love to have as many people attend as possible to get feedback on this. We're also looking for people to facilitate our breakout groups. We try to not have the hospital involved in facilitating, so that people can be really open and not feel like there is, you know, bias coming from having the hospital facilitate. So we're looking for community residents and community leaders to facilitate the breakout groups. So if you are willing to do, to either attend or to facilitate, please let me know. You can send me an email, you can send me a chat in this message today, and we would love to have your help with that. Thank you.
So that's it. I really appreciate everybody taking the time to join us today. From SPAN, we all are grateful for your time today. Have a great morning, and we look forward to seeing you next month at one of our action teams. Right. Bye.
Thanks, Angie.